Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Richard Schreiber Show, where it's all about keeping you, the composer and producer, inspired and motivated. In today's episode, I interview the fantastic Xylo Aria, who is an Australian music producer and also runs the brilliant online music education for women called Music Production for Women, which is fantastic. And we talk a lot about this in the show. We talk about, obviously her living in Australia, living in the UK, and taking the leap to go full time and really trust in your career, which is actually a huge, huge thing for lots of people. At what point do you take that leap? At what point do you say, you know what, I'm going to give this a go. I'm going to quit the job and I'm going to do this 100% or 110%, depending on, how much of a stickler you are for percentages. And obviously then what resulted with that was her setting up MPW and the resulting podcasts and courses. And Xylo's mission is to bring more women into music, which I think is such a fantastic mission. And we talk a lot about how she's doing that with her community at MPW. It's a really, really fun chat. She was such a lovely guest to have on the show, and I hope you enjoy it too. Xylo Aria, so lovely to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thank you, Richard, for inviting me. It's great to be here.
Yeah. Right, so let's kick this off with an icebreaker because, both you and I know what it's like to be on a podcast as well as hosting one. So I always like to ask those weird questions that no one really asks. So tell me something surprising about yourself that not many people would know.
I have lived in 4 different countries, so I guess not many people would know that. So I was born in India, and then I moved to Australia, and I kind of grew up here, and then I lived in Malaysia for 6 months during uni, did exchange, which was the best time ever. If anyone's thinking of doing exchange, just do it, I say. It's the best. And then I lived in the UK for a couple of years just before everything went crazy with COVID. So yeah, that's my thing.
Nice. So I just want to touch on the Malaysia time. So what was it? What was the exchange?
Just did. We have like a sister university in Malaysia. So it was crazy. Like they were pretty much paying people to do the exchange. Like you made a profit on it. I don't know how.
Wow, no wonder you enjoyed it.
Yeah, but no, not many people wanted to do it. It was just crazy. I wanted to do another semester, but unfortunately it didn't work out really with my subjects or whatever. But it was such a good deal and we had so much fun. It's an amazing country, which I feel is a bit unfortunate. People just kind of transit out of it, but there's so much there.
Yes, well, having a big airport like that is as the touch point is gonna do that. I think everyone's like, well, I've got to travel across the world. I'll stop off there.
Yeah.
One of my friends, he studied American studies at uni, and obviously they did the first year or 2 years studying America, and then the third year is going out to the States and having their last year in America. And he came back after about 2 weeks being like, no, I didn't really like America.
Oh, no.
I know. Brilliant choice of degree there. Well done.
That's hilarious.
That's brilliant. Right. Okay. Xylo, let's transport back to your earliest creative memory.
Okay. I actually remember there was this, because growing up we'd do like every evening mum would make me and my sister like pray, and like there was this one short little like prayer or whatever, and I remember I listened to a song from a movie, because in India all songs come from movies. It's strange. And I put the melody from that song into this prayer, and we still, every time, like if we do the prayer as a family or whatever, we sing it in that melody, which is crazy for me that that I did that. I think I was really young. So yeah. Maybe that one.
That's awesome.
Sorry, my light is being crazy.
That's all right. Don't worry. I'm not going to press you and ask you to sing the melody. Don't worry. But that's
Okay.
fantastic. So, how old were you? Do you
Great.
think?
I think I must have been like 5 or something. It was definitely before I moved to Australia, and that was when I was 7. So yeah,
What was the prayer? Do you mind sharing the prayer? Or at
you know
least
what? I know
the
it's
gist,
going to
the
sound
gist of
like
it.
I'm lying, but I'm just it's all Indian prayers are in like ancient languages that no one understands, or I definitely don't understand anyway. So I think it was in Sanskrit. So you just kind of say it, but you don't know what it means.
Yeah, but there's
But yeah,
power in those words, aren't there? Well, that's what I believe.
yeah, I like to think so. I like to think we're saying them for some reason,
Yeah,
better than nothing. But yeah, it's just gone out of my head what it actually was. But
it's all right. Don't worry. Also, it might be one of those times when, unless you sing it, you can't remember the words. I have something like that.
yes,
Yeah.
Definitely, yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's really interesting that that's your earliest creative memory, given how important your voice is to your music. I think that's a
Mm.
really nice tie-in. And you and that's it's really nice that you remember it clearly too.
Yeah. It's strange how, when you're really young, some things you remember very clearly and you're not really sure why. And other things that maybe were kind of big things just kind of disappeared from your memory.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I find it difficult to, because I always think my earliest memory is me getting the pots and pans out as a kid,
Yeah.
creating them and banging them. But I think that's just because I was shown a photo so often. You know, uh,
Okay.
you know, is that actually my earliest creative memory, or is that just the photo that's been showed to me enough?
Could be.
But okay, so going from adding a melody to this prayer, what is your then most proud moment in your career to date?
Um, well, I guess the proudest moment is not exactly to do with my musical creativity, but it's sort of around that is um just I guess the messages that I get at music production for women, which is the online learning platform that I run. And I have a folder of them actually, because people often will find it and send me a message saying, I'm so glad this platform exists. This has really changed my trajectory in music. I wouldn't have started producing if it wasn't for this and all this stuff. And yeah, whenever I wonder why I bother doing whatever it is that I'm doing when it gets really hard and all this stuff, it's really nice to kind of look through those and be like, actually, maybe this is something great and it's, helping a lot of people. Um, so yeah, I think that's probably the proudest of my musical journey.
So, can you tell the listeners a little bit about music production for women?
Yeah, sure. So it started maybe 2.5 years ago, just kind of reflecting on my journey into music production. And I just felt so kind of intimidated by it myself. And every space I was going to, I was the only woman. And just in those settings, I think because people often say, well, no one's stopping women from being there and stuff, which is, it's true. But when you are just the very small minority, it just feels like it's not a place for you, like, and you just feel like the odd person out. And I just remember kind of sitting in a corner in those rooms and just not wanting to draw any attention to myself, because I was like, oh God, what if I ask something really stupid and then I'm going to be the girl who has no idea what's going on. And yeah, I just felt like it shouldn't have been that intimidating or that hard, or there should have been a place where I felt comfortable to ask whatever I wanted to ask and all this stuff. So I didn't really see anyone kind of doing the three main things that we kind of focus on, which is kind of visibility of other people doing this, so you don't feel like you're the only one and you have someone else to kind of look up to potentially, and having a strong community, and also having content created with women in mind as well. So I didn't really see anyone doing those things, and I decided if it was going to help me, there's probably other people that it can help as well. And yeah, so I started that a while ago. It's grown, it's grown a bit since then. And yeah, I love running it. It's really challenging and really difficult as well, which, maybe we'll get to later, but it's also really, really rewarding. So yeah, we do, a bunch of courses and kind of catch-ups for our members, and I have a podcast and a YouTube channel and a few other bits and pieces. So yeah, that's in a summary, I guess.
Listeners, the podcast is well worth a listen as well. It's the MPW podcast. Also, I love the intro to the podcast too. All the voices chattering, great. It's really, it's totally unique. But I just want to touch on something you mentioned there about not being many women in the music production scene. And as you say, people do put that lame reason of, well, they can always sign up. But the thing is, you sort of gravitate towards those who are like you. And if you don't see those faces, like on an advert or a flyer or on their YouTube channel, then you don't connect quite as much, which is a sad truth. But I've noticed that there are a ton of female composers, producers, arrangers. Because there would be. Why wouldn't there be? But the thing is, a lot of the institutions, it's just a bunch of guys running it, and you don't migrate towards that, and you don't connect quite as much. So I think it's fantastic what you're doing. Fantastic, it's awesome.
Thank you.
Oh no, thank you. It's great, because also you're bringing this as a conversation to not just to the greater picture, but also to this podcast, because I think this is one of the things that I noticed is well, I'd like to interview some female producers, female composers as well, as not just dudes who write trailer music, which isn't a bad thing. But it's because you don't get a broad picture of what's going on, and you don't get a broad picture of approaches, and it's not how life actually is either. It's very strange. This you all know, of course.
No, I do, of course, but it's actually nice hearing that perspective from a guy as well. And because I think sometimes it's really hard to bring men into the conversation, which is something that is something that I'm always thinking about. How can we do that? Because because we need them to get on board as well. And there are heaps of people like yourself as well that are hugely supportive of this, which is great. But there's a few that maybe are just indifferent or don't know about what the problem is. And I think it's really important for maybe them to hear people like you voice your opinion the way you just did, because maybe that will encourage them to check it out and see what's going on about this anyway.
I'm hoping so. Well, the thing is, it's just like a lot of the issues that have been flying around the last couple of years. The issues are coming up because there's not a fair representation. And ideally, we want to get to the point where there is no need for these issues to be brought up because there is a fair representation. But until there is a fair representation, it needs to be talked about. So yeah.
True.
Yeah. Whew, that's the deep bit. Go on. There we go. Right. So now this question, I love this question because it's about opening up. And I don't know about you, but usually my go-to when I meet new people is to open up automatically, almost like as a test of the person. Can they handle me vomiting emotion on them? That's this is my terrible backstory. Here it goes. No, so when have you been at your lowest emotionally?
That is a quite intense question.
It really is.
For sure. So yeah. Okay, I get what you're saying. I have to say probably April, May last year, I would say, a bit after kind of the pandemic was on at full flight, and I had moved back from the UK. So I was there for a couple of years, and I'd moved back to Australia, which initially I was so glad and thankful to be home and just be able to cross the border, because it was just, I got home in March 2020 and like, I think border shut 2 days after that or something like that. So it was just a very intense time, and I was glad to be here. But then after a little while, the pace of life in London especially is insane for anyone that hasn't been there before, and I felt like I'd really thrown myself into everything. I was going to so many different music events and meeting so many people and really working hard to get MPW off the ground, and suddenly I went from that to just a standstill lifestyle. I'd moved back to my parents' place in Melbourne, and I didn't know what I was doing with my life. I was like, okay, I'm back here, and the project's sort of going, but I'm not feeling motivated, and I have an accounting background, so I studied accounting, worked in kind of the corporate field for a while, and that was always my backup. It was always there if I needed it, and I always knew I could land a job fairly quickly if I needed to. But even that wasn't working out. I was talking to recruiters, not even getting an interview, and just sending out a bunch of resumes, and just into the void, it felt. And I was like, geez, this is my backup and that's not even working. Like, what am I meant to do now? And do we just leave it at the bottom moment, or like how I got out of that?
No, let's not leave everybody hanging.
Okay.
That's the end of the podcast, guys. See you later.
It's been fun.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So that was, I guess, the kind of lowest moment. And it's really funny. And geez, this is opening up like a lot.
Do it.
I haven't, kind of publicly spoken about this, I guess, and it's really not a big deal when I think about it. But like, I decided I needed to speak to a psychologist, and that decision for me was so hard to make, which is insane, because like, if my friends felt they needed to talk to a psychologist or whatever, I'd say, yeah, go do it. I think it's a great idea. But for me to do that, I was like, what the hell is going on? Like, how did I get to this point? This is insane. Why can't I deal with this myself? And and I think it was the process of booking the appointment that or like picking it, like I had a sheet in front of me with like a bunch of different psychologist names, and I was like, right, I don't know how I got here, but I just kind of snapped out of it in that moment, and I was like, okay, cool. Like, I need to address this, and I need to, just kind of do something about it rather than like wallowing in self-pity, which is fine, if you are there, and that's kind of where I was as well. But then, yeah, I just kind of, got to it, and then had my appointment. But even by the time the appointment came around, this is COVID, but and like appointments were firstly hard to get and they were way in advance. I think everyone was in a terrible mental state. So by the time it came around, I felt like I didn't really even need it anymore, because I'd kind of kicked into gear of I need to do something about this. And I just changed my routine. I think I started waking up really early and just exercising more, and just changed my routine up a bit. And it's crazy how, like, when you decide that, right, I'm going to take this head on, how everything changes. Like within 2 weeks of that, I got a job at, it was in accounting, but it was at a not-for-profit, which I loved. I really, really enjoyed that job for a while. And yeah, doing something really interesting, and MPW started picking up as well. Like everything sort of, changed trajectory a little bit. And I think it was just from deciding that I need to do something about this, because, no one else is going to really do it for me. Yeah, so that was that. And things have been, great. Obviously, there's some ups and downs like everyone has, but it's been good since then.
Thank you for sharing that and opening up publicly too. I just think it's really fascinating, isn't it? How sometimes it's like a switch gets flicked. It's like your energy has just completely shifted, and you go, "Oh, action mode."
Yeah.
And because you switch into that action mode, you mentioned waking up early and doing some exercise. Was there anything else? Because these type of actionable things are great for everybody. So anyone who's in that situation where you're feeling lost, overwhelmed, and generally sort of in a pit of despair and hopelessness, having things that you can action are really important. So I think it's really interesting that you talked about deciding to see a psychologist. And that's a really key thing for a lot of people, isn't it? That decision that, actually, I need help at this point. And we don't talk about that a lot.
Yeah.
Because there's still such a terrible stigma about, everyone's okay to say I'm stressed because I'm working too much. But, no one's okay to be like, you know what, I'm just really, really anxious about life in general. I don't have much work on, I have enough, but there's nothing really wrong with my life, but why do I feel anxious? And so many people are in that state, aren't they, where they don't really realize that there isn't anything wrong with their life. There isn't anything wrong with them, because everybody struggles with this all the time. And sorry, go on.
Yeah, no, totally. And one thing that you mentioned before of like the switch, and actually thinking about it now, I think what it was about finally booking that appointment was acceptance of the problem. And I think one of the biggest problems about, feeling, depressed or whatever it is that you're feeling is that we're in denial about it, for so long, of like, oh no, I can't be depressed, like that's not who I am. And I have to kind of just get over this. And I got to the get over it part afterwards as well. But there's a difference between having that attitude, but not accepting that there is a problem, and actually accepting that there is a problem and being okay with having that problem, which I think is a completely different thing, because then you're like, okay, this is how I'm feeling and it's okay to feel that way, and I'm just going to maybe let myself feel it for a little while, and then kind of go into action mode. But the denial of it, I feel like, is always the biggest problem for me.
Yeah. Well, there's so much fear involved in even acknowledging small emotions we all have. There's so much fear because, we've all been bottling them up for most of our life that, that acknowledging the smallest emotions can sometimes feel like a mammoth task. So once you acknowledge that and then you started waking up early, was there a specific morning routine, or was it just getting up early and sort of taking the day head on?
I think I can't remember actually. I think I was doing some exercise, kind of working in meditation into my mornings as well. And there's this book, and I talk about it all the time. My friends are probably sick of me talking
Is
about
it
it.
Hal Elrod's Miracle Morning? No?
No.
That was going to be an amazing moment.
That would have been an amazing moment. No, it's a book by an author called Louise Hay. It's called You Can Heal Your Life.
Yourself. Yeah, I think I've got that there. Yep.
Oh my God. Honestly, the amount of times that book has just gotten me like out of a rut is just insane. And I feel like every time I read it, I get something totally different out of it. And depending on what the major issue is at that point, I just address the exercises that she gives you with that thing in mind. And there's always some sort of epiphany that comes out of it. So yeah, but the funny thing is, like, you have to be in the right headspace for it to work, I think, because I remember growing up, it's mum's book, actually, the one that I have, and mum used to always pick out little passages that she loved, and she'd be like, oh, read this, it's amazing, it'll blow your mind. And I'd just kind of skim over it, and I was like, I don't get it, this makes no sense. Like, it was just so irrelevant to me at the time because my mind, I think, was just not ready for it or didn't understand. So I think it's going to work for you if you're open to it working. But if you are like, oh, this is all garbage, like it's not going to work, then it's not going to work. And that's just going to be it. But if you want to give it a try and it does appeal, to any listener or whatever, I would 100% recommend.
I would like to think all of my listeners are very aware of how, air quotes, woo-woo I am.
Great.
And if listeners aren't sure about Louise Hay, pretty much any of the books by her publishing company, Hay House, are amazing. And if you approach them with an open mind, which is an important aspect of approaching life, I think, then you can get a hell of a lot out of them. So good shout on that book. That's a great one.
Yeah. Cool. I'm glad you agree.
Nice. Yay. Right. So let's talk about you now. So just so you know, you're not the only person I've spoken to who said their lowest moment was that time of life.
Right. Yeah.
It's pretty much like, lockdown. Because there's so much isolation, and not wanting to get too political, so much emphasis placed on COVID, but all the other diseases, including mental illnesses, were completely overlooked. Which I think is a terrible shame. So let's talk about you now. You just shared some exciting news on Instagram. Yes, was it yesterday? 2 days? 2 days ago?
Yes,
a couple of days ago. Yeah. And what's that?
Fresh off the press.
Yeah. Although it's going to be old news by the time this goes out, but yeah.
Fair enough. So I quit my job, which was the one that I said I got, about a year and a bit ago or whatever, which was the accounting at the not-for-profit, and various reasons why that happened. But one of them was that I felt like maybe it's the right time to just take a leap into, MPW and just make it work. And yeah, I mean, I think I'm excited, but also like, oh my God. And and I said in the post as well, I've done this twice before, where I've quit and been like, I'm going to do something crazy. And the first time was when I moved to the UK with zero plan, and that ended up being like the best 2 years of my life. And then the second time was when I had the idea for MPW, and I just since we're getting deep, I might as well kind of share this as well.
Yeah.
But one of my closest friends passed away November of 3 years ago now.
I'm sorry to hear that.
And yeah, it was a horrendous time and just a completely unexpected tragedy. And so that was November, and January I decided to quit my job and just start MPW, because it's just, if anyone's had someone close to them that they've lost, and that was the first, real one for me. And it's just a huge wake-up call. Like, what are you doing with your life? Like, what is actually important? And we can say, oh, I have this great idea, but I'll do it when the time comes or when the time is right or whatever. But then I was like, my friend was literally there one day and not the next. And I was like, well, you cannot plan for something like that. And how sad would it be if all these ideas were just in your head and you did absolutely nothing about it? So I quit that job, and Friday kind of finished that up, and Monday morning started building MPW. And that was a slog over 11 months, just kind of watching my bank balance just drop, and living in London, which is not a cheap place to live, and just kind of having some very unrealistic views on how quickly this was going to work for me. And then I kind of had to get another job after that. So this is the sort of third attempt to leave the kind of full-time rat race, if that's what we want to call it. But yeah, I've just decided to, like, I have to somehow make this work for myself, because it's just amazing working for yourself compared to working for someone else, and everything that comes along with that. Yeah.
Wowzers. I've got two kind of points to highlight in there. I want to touch on you losing your friend, because my wife and I lost a really close friend when we were 30. So she was 29. And it was a similar thing. I was pretty much a full-time teacher, music teacher, and my wife was working for a magazine, and we both kind of, after our friend Haley passed away, we were both like, well, what the hell are we doing? Like, it's now or never, isn't it? You've got to jump.
Yeah.
And
totally.
It was then that I handed in my notice as a teacher and have been a full-time composer since.
Right. Wow, that's crazy.
It's the nudge. I wouldn't say a nudge. It's the kick in the back of the head that a lot of us unfortunately get as a result of that.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that I want to highlight. The second thing I want to highlight is how incredibly brave you are for doing that 3 times. Like, that jump is hard, and it takes a lot of stewing. Like, it's not just like one day, I'm going to quit. It's like months and months of agonizing over all these images of failure and possible success, but mostly failure. So yeah, well done to you for doing that 3 times, because that's hard to do, and a lot of people don't ever do it.
Yeah. So, thank you. It's for anyone that's kind of thinking about it, I think, because it was a thing in my head as well that, like, if it's going to work, it's going to work the first time, which is crap, really, like, not really. It's not the first time or never, because that would be a miracle, really, if you managed it right off the bat. And So that's another thing of like just telling myself that it's okay that it's taking me 3 times. Who knows? Maybe it's going to take a 4th or whatever. But yeah, just got to keep at it.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I just realized that it was my second time.
Okay.
I tried it first straight out of uni. My wife and I went traveling. We came back and I was like, hey, I've got a degree. I'm quite good at writing music. I'm going to be a composer. Oh, I'm not getting any work. Months in, this is going to be harder than I thought. So I had to get a part-time job at Gap, and then and that's when I started teaching.
Okay. Yeah. Second time. That's good.
Second
that's
time.
good.
Yeah. I forget about that first time.
Nice. Yeah.
It's that arrogance you have after like university education, where you're like, right, I've officially got a degree. I am open for business.
Yeah.
What they don't tell you is how much you're going to have to work and persevere.
Yeah. True.
So let's talk about MPW more because now that's your focus, right?
Yeah.
So how does it work? You know, I want the listeners to understand how it's a membership, isn't it?
There are a few different things going on, really. So, I mean, there is the membership, yes. So, if you're a member of MPW, then we do like, monthly catch-up calls. We have like industry feedback sessions. If people want to feedback on something that they're working on, we do. What else do we do? I've just gone out of my head, but it's just kind of everything that you need when you feel alone and you're doing it yourself. And especially I think production is just such a solitary thing. It's just nice to have a community to go to and be like, I don't get this, like, where should I go? Can someone point me somewhere? So yeah, we have a Facebook group and we do like weekly feedback sessions through that as well. And we run a few other kind of industry workshops on different things like maybe sync or music licensing and all these other kind of bits that you sort of need to know, but maybe don't know that you need to know. So that's one part of it, which is the membership. And then we also have an online course that people can sign up to as like a subscription-based thing. And that's like a self-paced course. That's an intro to music production course on Ableton. And when I say it's kind of self-paced, you do need to do the kind of work on your own, but then you also get access to the kind of monthly catch-up calls and you can, ask me anything. And I think people don't really make enough use of that as well. And with all these things, I guess we spoke about it a little bit before the podcast, is that sometimes we can offer so much to our students and kind of give them heaps of resources, but at the end of the day it is up to the person to do something and actually use it. So that's the kind of the membership and the kind of subscription course side of it. But then we also do a lot of one-off courses once a month on different topics. Like we're just doing a Logic one now. We did a vocal production one, which was really popular just before. We're doing a music theory for producers one coming up. So there's kind of a variety of things around that as well. And yeah, like I said about the podcast and the YouTube channel, which is just kind of resources that people can make the most of if they find it useful.
So all of those extra courses are available to the subscription members?
No, so those are like people can join us. So we usually advertise it through our Instagram or through our mailing list and that kind of thing. And people can sign up to that separately to the subscription. So yeah, you don't have to be doing the subscription for that.
So the thing I like about the subscription stuff is that it's the most valuable stuff in the subscription. And that's the relationships and the community. My career without relationships would not be a career.
Yeah, for sure.
The skills are one thing, but getting to know other people and working with other people and being active with other people is the dark secret of becoming a successful musician, in my mind, that actually so much of it is relationships. There's so much emphasis on, you're getting your production chops up, getting your compositional skills, making sure you're an excellent performer, making sure your marketing is current. There's so much involved. But sometimes it all comes together with one magic email from somebody about Breaking Bad. And you suddenly hit it off and you go, oh, we should work together. And then this magic starts.
So true. And yeah, it's great that you've mentioned that. And it's so important. And even a lot of the podcast guests on our podcast as well say the importance of, and it's such a sort of, I don't think so, but some people think a bit of an ugly term of networking, but essentially just making friends, if you want to put it that way, of just reaching out to people and seeing, just maybe saying a nice thing about what they're doing, and then things can kind of build from there, or just offering something that you can do for them rather than here's what you can do for me, and then straight away that maybe that kind of isn't the best way to go about it. But you're right, and it's a tip that everyone seems to give us of make sure you are focusing on connecting with people as well.
Yeah, I almost feel like that should be like the first thing we learn as composers and producers. How to be nice to people. Not just because you want something from them,
Yeah, exactly.
Because I don't know about you, but my music education was fear-based. I'm not talking about you should understand your theory because it's scary. It's more the real world is so competitive. Most of you are going to fail.
Okay.
You're going to get sued. People are going to steal your music. It was all this. I was sitting there going, trying to take notes furiously. Oh God, how am I ever going to make this? I'm going to make this. I'm going to fail. And what they need to do, scrap that. Talk to the person sat next to you. Make some friends. Because that relationship could blossom into the thing that you're looking for. And if it doesn't, you've just made a good friend.
I love that.
to help you in those times that you talked about, in the times when you're feeling alone and overwhelmed and stressed, sometimes just having someone who you can share that with is everything you need. Even if it is someone who just needs to give you a bit of a slap and just say, sort it out, or a kind shoulder to cry on.
Yes, very true, very true. And when you say to have someone to talk to in those moments, one of my really good friends now, Lena Tatonen, she has an incredible YouTube channel called LNA Does Audio Stuff, and she reached out to me on Instagram to do something together to work on a documentary idea that she had. And that's where things kind of started for us. And now I, considered her one of my closest friends. And when I decided to quit this job, she was the first person that I called. And I was like, Lena, how do I do this? Because she had, gone freelance not too long before that, and she was making it work. And so, reaching out to people, and sometimes it can result in really unlikely friendships, which is lovely.
Yeah, absolutely. And also the other thing is it reduces this idea, it makes it small, that we are all competing against each other. Which again was something that I felt, oh, these other composers stealing work from me. It's not at all like that. We're in this together,
Yeah.
And, trying to help each other out is so important. And, that's one of the reasons I love the podcast, is because I get to talk to people. I get to talk to you and meet you and hear your stories. And it's another relationship that I have in my sphere of connections. because, like you said, it does feel lonely.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
because I don't know,
Uh,
I don't know about you, but hardly any of my friends are freelancers.
yeah.
So
Same. Exactly.
those afternoons when I finish my work and I'm like, I want to go to the cinema, but I don't want to go on my own again. you know, you don't.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Everyone else is like, I'm so busy. I'm working like 12 hours a day. Oh, okay. I guess I'll just watch Netflix again.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
For
mean, do you
sure.
do you have that same situation? Of course, now that you're officially freelance, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, not the situation of wanting to go to the cinema and instead watching Netflix. Not that particular one, but not really actually. I feel when I'm given too much time, I end up working more and more. So because some people at work were like, oh, how are you going to fill up this time? And I was like, oh, I think the problem is going to be when do I stop working, because there's no end time then.
true.
So I think, yeah, that's for me the biggest challenge, which is another thing that you can rely on, your other freelance friends or whatever it is to give you some advice on, when you're like, oh my God, I feel like I need to get everything done right now and it's just so overwhelming. You might just need someone to be like, just calm down, nothing's going to get, built in one day, and you just need to break it down and take it one step at a time. And, that's what I did, or whatever it is. So that's kind of one of my challenges. But actually, today I played tennis on my own against a wall. So maybe that's my equivalent to the movie thing, which
There we
was
go.
great fun.
Yeah. I guess you lost terribly to the wall.
Oh yeah,
Impassable.
yeah, exactly. So went over the wall a few times. It's just but it's fun nonetheless.
Yeah, no, you raise a totally valid point. Of having to have the self-discipline to put your own boundaries in place. I rely heavily on my three kids to give me my boundaries. They go to school at 9. Well, in fact, one of them's only 2, so she's still here, and I take her 1 or 2 days a week, and then my other kids 9 till 3, and then 3 stop work.
That's excellent.
Well, yeah, it sounds amazing, doesn't it? But then you find yourself kind of sneaking off into the other room and checking your stop,
Yeah,
bloody phone, or they're watching, I don't know, Peppa Pig for the 3rd hour in a row, and I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna check Instagram again, guys. No, and so there are those battles, which I'm sure everybody has, but they feel particularly prevalent when you're at home a lot.
For sure. But yeah, that's a good thing to have. I guess your kids are a great great point to make you stop working. So
yeah, especially when they're like, Daddy, put your phone down. Oh, sorry.
Aw.
I'm not that bad. I'm making it sound terrible. I've got a lot better, but they're terribly. I'm pushing it away from me right now. It's very addictive.
They are,
which is, I guess, the idea behind them. But I think we should just finish with a little bit of advice. Admittedly, you've already given tons of fantastic golden nuggets, I'd like to call them. But what advice would you give to someone who's struggling in their creative journey?
So I think having some sort of limitation is good with creativity if you're struggling, and or maybe just committing to something, and or having some this is a lot of different things, but like having someone keep you accountable and kind of tying all those things together. I last or the year before last, I signed up to this collective in Melbourne, which are open to everyone, called Beat Collective, and they release 2 samples every fortnight, and then you have to create something using those samples and just share it with the group. It's a really, really lovely community, and everyone's, super nice about the feedback on at the end when you share the track and everything. But I kind of tied that into another thing that I decided to do for myself, which I was like, how do I get someone to keep me accountable? Then I was like, I'm going to post this on social media, because how more, it kind of embarrassing if I say that I don't keep to something that I've kind of announced to the world that I was going to do, which was, I said that I was going to share something with my followers that I'm making every Tuesday. So I called it XA Tuesdays. And I had a thing that I had to, post something on an Instagram story that I had made that week. So I'd kind of tied that into the Beat Collective challenges sometimes as well. And so that was kind of my limitation and my keeping accountable, keeping myself accountable, but using kind of the social platforms. And there were times where I hated myself for it, where I was like, oh my God, why? Like, I don't have time and I can't be bothered. I'm just tired. But I was like, oh, I've said I'm going to do this. So I will. And so I continued it for half the year. I started it like early January, I think, in the first week, and I did it up to June. So I got 26 like song ideas. And I was glad I even kind of kept it that long. After that, it kind of got a bit stale on socials, and I thought it's just not fun for me anymore. But that was, I got loads of great ideas that ended up, shaping an EP, which will come out shortly, hopefully. And 2 EPs even, there were lots of ideas there. But so I would recommend those 2 things, I guess.
I couldn't agree more about limitation and accountability. And, I'm always preaching about like using less sample libraries, or just using one microphone, even if it's not a good microphone, whatever you can use at hand, use it to make music, because you will find that creativity rockets through the roof. And the accountability just ties in completely with your MPW. Having the community there to share your work with and building it together, and getting not just feedback from your partner and your parents. It's like, oh, well done, that's really nice. It's like, oh, actually, this is fantastic, love this, and perhaps you could try this. It's actual actionable feedback you get from your peers as well. So awesome. Xylo Aria, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. You rock. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure, and kind of dug into a few things I wasn't expecting to, but it's been fun and kind of good to have those conversations as well. So awesome. Thanks for inviting me, Richard.
Absolute pleasure. And all the links to all of the places mentioned will be in the show notes, guys.
Cool. Thank you.